Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mini Hack Solved series. In this episode, we are going to solve a hack by integrating Salesforce and Slack without writing a single line of code. We are going to use Slack core actions with Salesforce Flow. If you haven't watched any of the earlier episodes, let me tell you that Mini Hacks is the most popular area both at Dreamforce and Trailhead DX, where people come into this zone, pick up a hack to solve a business problem. The hack contains the requirements on what to do, but not how to do it. It also specifies the features to be used while you solve the hack. So let's get started. Okay, let's get into the hack. But before that, let's see what is Slack. Slack is a channel-based messaging platform where you can collaborate and exchange information while you work. It not only connects people with each other, but also their tools and data. The full form of Slack is searchable log of all conversation and knowledge, which essentially means that the conversations that you make are not lost, and you can search any of your conversations and knowledge at any point of time. Slack is not just a collaboration tool, it is a platform and can be a digital HQ with which you can connect your worldwide team to work together. Let's now look at Slack user interface. A Slack workspace is where team members can communicate and work together. You can create a workspace for your company or join an existing workspace. In today's hack, we are going to use one of those workspaces. A workspace can contain channels. You can have a dedicated channel for a project or even a topic. You can communicate with team members through channels or even send them direct messages. You can add one or more apps to the workspace. For instance, you can add Google Drive app to access Google Drive, GitHub for Git repository, etc. While you can add vendor-created Slack apps like G Drive, GitHub, etc., Salesforce created a series of apps that integrate Salesforce into Slack. And we are going to try one of those integrations today. In today's hack, we'll leverage these Salesforce created apps to trigger an action in Slack from Flow. Okay, let's check the hack now. The hack name is Swarm on Salesforce Cases in Slack. The description says that we can leverage the power of Salesforce flows and Salesforce to help cross-functional teams to collaborate and close cases faster. It is also mentioned in the description that some of the teams don't use Salesforce, but still should be able to work on cases created in the Salesforce org. That means we need to integrate Salesforce and Slack to enable both the teams to work together on a case. Let's now check the detailed requirements. The challenge requires a Salesforce instance. You can use Developer Edition, Trailhead Playground, or a Scratch org. I already have a Developer Edition and I'm going to use that. Next, we need a Slack workspace. If you already have a Slack account and workspace, you can use it. Or create a new account with an email ID. I already have a Slack account and I'll be using it. The next step is to set up an integration between the Salesforce instance and Slack workspace. The requirements have a link to the help documentation. I'll share the link in the description below. Okay, let's open the link. I'll follow these steps to set up and assign the necessary permissions. I have already read through the instructions. So let's go ahead and set things up. From setup in the quick find box, let's search Slack and select Initial Slack setup. We can review the documentation and agree to the terms and conditions. The next step is to enable Slack apps for Salesforce. We will be working with the cases in our use case. So let's enable the Service Cloud for Slack. Let's click Go to Service Cloud for Slack setup. Here we can enable Service Cloud for Slack app. Once enabled, let's go back to the initial setup and mark I'm done selecting Slack applications. Now let's assign Service Cloud for Slack permissions to the user. Of course, that's me. Let's select Slack Service User Permission Set and add the assignment. Also, let's click System Permissions and be sure that we have both connect Salesforce with Slack and run flows permissions. Let's go back to the initial Slack setup and mark this step as done. You can also make sure that the users have appropriate permissions on the case object. I have logged in as system admin, so obviously I have permissions on the case object. But if you are logging in as a different user, please check the user permissions. We can then show only the object type to the Slack users or give more context to the users by selecting show record name and object type. You can also see the example Slack notifications here. The sixth step is to install Salesforce for the Slack app. The seventh step is to add additional features to the Slack app, and the eighth step is optional for field access customization. We can ignore the seventh and eighth steps as they are not needed for our hack. Let's go back to step 6 and install the Salesforce for Slack app. You can click go to the Slack app directory. It shows a redirect pop-up. Click confirm. You can scroll down and select Salesforce for Slack app. You can also find a direct link in the requirements and the description below. Let's click Get Salesforce for Slack app. Now it's time to connect Slack workspace to Salesforce app. Let's do that. You can allow Salesforce for Slack app to access your workspace and vice versa. You can see in your Slack workspace that the app is now installed. Let's go back to the requirements and see what we have done so far. We have enabled Slack for Salesforce from the setup in the Salesforce org. We have also installed Salesforce for Slack app. Next, we'll have to use Slack flow core actions to finish the rest of the requirements. Let's click this link. You can see various actions and see that we can use actions to archive a channel, check if users are connected to Slack, create a Slack channel, etc. Okay, let's see the requirements once. For each case created in Salesforce, we need to create a Slack channel with the case number in the given format. We'll start by creating a record trigger flow with a Slack core action to create a channel. Let's create a new record triggered flow. Let's select the case object and trigger the flow whenever a record is created. Let's keep other things default and we can include an asynchronous path. We can use auto layout or freeform layout. I prefer freeform layout, so let me select freeform layout. We can drag and drop an action and select Slack. You can see various actions are available. We can select create Slack channel action for our requirement. We can give a label. You can see that the Salesforce for Slack app is now available in the Slack app dropdown. Let's select it. You can see that it shows the connected workspace in the Slack workspace dropdown. Let's select it. You can either run this action as Slack app or in the user's context of the user who triggered this flow. Let's keep it default. Now, as per the requirement, you can give the channel in the format case-case number. So let's select record.case number and prefix it with case hyphen. That's all. Click done. Let's connect the start node to this action and select run asynchronously. Let's check if this action is working. We have two choices. We can activate the flow and test it, or option 2 is we can debug the flow until all the requirements of the hack are completed and finally activate the flow. I choose second option as I don't end up creating too many versions of my flow. Further, let's create a sample case to use while debugging. Let's create a new case and select origin as phone. Let's give some subject and description and save. Let's go back to the flow builder. Let's save the flow. Give it a name and save. You might see a warning to set up default user in process automation settings. You may ignore it for now. Let's go ahead and click debug. You can select path to run asynchronously and keep other inputs default. Select the case we have just created and run. We don't see any errors in the write, hence it has successfully run. We can verify the inputs and output for the create channel step. Okay, let's go and check this in Slack. Let's select three dots next to channels and select browse channels. You can see that it has created the channel in the expected format. So far, so great. Let's now check further requirements. The next step is to add the case owner automatically to the newly created Slack channel. Let's go back to the flow builder and edit the flow. Let's add a Slack action. Let's select invite users to Slack channel. Let's give a label. Like in previous step, let's select Slack app and workspace. We can select channel ID from outputs from the create channel step. Here, we need to specify a collection of user IDs to invite to the channel. In our case, we'll have to add the owner ID of the case to the collection. So we need to cancel this. Let's cancel this for now and create a collection of user IDs. Let's first create a variable to hold the collection of user IDs. Let's create a new resource of type variable and give an API name. Let's select data type as text as we want to store the ID value. Let's check allow multiple values as it is going to be a collection. Let's make it available for both input and output. Next, we can add the case owner ID to the collection. For this, we can use assignment logic. Let's drag and drop the assignment. Give it a label and API name. Let's select user IDs variable and add the case record dot owner ID. Make sure that you select user ID and not group ID and click done. Now let's drag and drop action. Select Slack and invite users to Slack channel. Let's fill in the values like we have done before. Let's add label. Let's set connection values for the Slack. That is, let's select Slack app and workspace. Let's now set Slack channel and user details. Let's select channel ID and workspace ID. Let's select the user ID's collection variable and click done. Let's now connect the nodes and debug. But wait. Before we debug, let's delete the channel we created during our earlier debug run. Let's now save it and debug. You can see this time it has created the channel and also added me to the channel. It's awesome, right? Okay, let's go back to the requirements to see the final requirement. We'll have to post a formatted welcome message to the newly created Slack channel, and the message should look like the example below. Okay, let's create the welcome message. Let's edit flow, drag and drop an action, select Slack, and this time we'll choose the send Slack message action. Give a label, select Slack app and workspace as usual. Slack conversion ID is your Slack channel ID. For message, we can create a new resource of type text template and give an API name. Now let's see what has to be sent in the message. The message has welcome text and an emoji. Did you notice the hint there? Yes, we can use markdown formatting. Let's click that link. Let me briefly explain this. The messages, model, and home tabs in Slack are called app surfaces. These surfaces can contain text objects and other UI elements like button, label, etc. These elements are called blocks, and these blocks can be composed to create these surfaces using a UI framework called BlockKit. You can also find a tool that runs the framework called BlockKit Builder. The text objects can be left as unformatted plain text or formatted with markdown. In our case, we can use plain text with some markdown elements. So let's start creating the message. First, we'll create a welcome text with an emoji. Let's go back to Flow Builder, select View as Plain Text and start the message. We need an emoji, so we'll use the markdown formatting hint to get the emoji. Here in the documentation, you can select emoji and go through it. I've already read it and I know where to find. So I'll click this GitHub link for emoji data. And here in this table, we can search for wave. Let's copy paste this text in our message. Next, we'll have to send the origin, subject and description of the case. Let's type origin colon and click on insert a resource. Again, this is a really handy tool with which you can find and insert the resources. Let's select case record and origin. Similarly, we'll add subject and description. Finally, we'll have to add a link to record in Salesforce. We'll again refer to the markdown formatting documentation. Here you can click links and there you can see some examples of links. You can actually view these examples in BlockKit Builder by clicking this button. On the left side bar of the BlockKit Builder, you can see various block elements. In the middle, you can see the message preview, how it looks like. And on the right, you can see the text objects. You can see when you select a block element, it automatically adds the text object and updates the message. And here you can see various examples of links. For our requirement, we can use the example. This message is a link. So let's copy paste the respective text object and modify it to fit our requirement. Let's modify this message is a link to say view Salesforce record. Let's update this URL with record view URL. Let's go to the case record view and copy paste the URL here. Let's update this hard-coded record ID with a resource. Again, click insert resource and select record.id. Let's click done. Let's now complete the Slack action to send message by clicking done on this action. Let's connect the path, save and debug. Let's first delete the channel from previous run and then debug again. The channel is created, added me as owner and also send the message in the expected format. Let's click View Salesforce Record and you can see that it takes us to the record page. We can now activate this flow and test by creating a new case. And with that, we have completed solving this hack. There can be more than one solution for most problems. If you have a better solution, please let us know in the comment section below. Also, please share your thoughts on content in the comment section. If you like this video, please click the like button and also subscribe to get notifications for any new videos on the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel. Thank you.